Oh, hey everyone. Welcome back to Studio Z for part 2 of the American Flag Fiasco. So where I left off last week, something had broken on the machine and I had to abandon the project and I had a very expensive piece of firewood. So where I'm going to start off today, I bet you guys are all wondering, obviously what was wrong with the machine. And it's a kind of a two-part problem, but it's really one main problem. And the main problem was that the two lower linear bearings on the x-axis had pretty much seized up. So this is them. So I'm going to show you a clip right now of what they looked like when I took it apart and how they were stuck. So let me show you that. Okay, so as you saw in that little clip, the bearings were really getting stuck and they would slide one way, get stuck, then you have to break it to come back the other way, so on and so forth. So I just want to go ahead and say to everyone on there, I'm well aware of machine maintenance, and this really ticked me off, and I'm gonna go more in deep detail about this in a video that I'll release next week, which will be a complete maintenance lubrication video on this machine and how to grease the linear bearings and how to take care of the ball screws, that kind of thing. And there's a reason that I want to do that. First of all, and I'm going to keep this brief because I don't want to go too long in this, but I had done the greasing on my bearings about 3 months ago. The oiling on my bearings. And again, we'll get into that later. And everything had come out of them. They were dried up, seized up. So that's what caused the problem on the machine. And if you're not aware of how the Shapeoko works, the Shapeoko 5 Pro uses an open loop system on its stepper motors. So basically, and I've known this for the longest time, it's something that I've got coming. I have a upgrade, let's call it, that I wanted to go with to get rid of this problem on the machine. So whenever the machine gets stuck or loses a certain number of steps, the stepper motor does not communicate back to the controller, hey man, I got stuck, we lost a few steps. No, it just keeps on going because there's no communication between the two. The controller just sends out the signal, move this much, move that much, and there's no relay back to it whether it did or not. So what was happening with the piece was that when it got stuck and it was trying to move, it just kept spinning and spinning and spinning and trying to send the signal to it. And then once it got unstuck, it thought that it was in the right place, which was 2 inches away from where it was supposed to be, and it continued to carve from there. So that is the problem with this machine. Again, I'm keeping this brief because I really want to dive deep into it in the following video next week and get more into it. But again, for whatever reason, cost, keep the machine cost down, they have used an open loop system, and I am looking for a closed loop system which then communicates back to the controller and lets it know, hey, I missed a step, stop, or sound the alarm, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's what was wrong with the machine. I put all brand new bearings on the x-axis, greased all 16 on the machine, and the ball screws, the lead screw, everything. This thing is purring like a kitten right now. It's brand new. So I adjusted everything, so it's all good to go. I have surfaced my board and I've got it all prepped. This is a brand new board. And this time around, I went with a full 1.5 inch thick. There's no, 2 layers. It's not sandwiched together anymore. And just for you guys out there that's wondering, I know someone had left a comment about, I'm only holding this thing down with 4 clamps. Come on, guys, really? There's 9 pieces of double-sided stick tape underneath this, holding it to here. And then I have these 4 clamps at each corner helping to pull it down, just for insurance, to pull it down. This board's not going anywhere. So just so that you guys know, I know you couldn't see it in the last video, but I would not just put 4 clamps on something like this. It's not going anywhere. All right, so I also, just quickly, I changed up the tool paths a little bit. So I took someone's advice, and in the last video I was experimenting. I've been experimenting on a couple of projects. I wanted to try to go with the grain and see what kind of difference I get, you know, that kind of thing. And clearly it didn't work in the last one. So for this one, the roughing tool path will be done rostered on a 45-degree angle as such. And it actually cuts more detail into it. It leaves very little left for the finishing pass to do. And so also on top of that, the finishing pass, I will be, again, a little larger of a step over and to try to speed it up, but it's still gonna take a long time. So fingers crossed, it's gonna be a long day. All right, let me get into the roughing. I don't know how much I'll show you guys because I know you've seen this before. I don't wanna bore you with it, so I'll keep it brief on the parts that we've already seen. All right, let's dive into it. All right, guys, so here it is. This is right after the roughing pass, and what a huge difference in, you know, changing the tool path to the roster pattern. I mean, I don't know why I bothered the last time with the, you know, the other way, doing the offset. That was dumb. This is practically done at this point. And this only took an hour and 20 minutes. Now, granted, you know, look at it. It's really rough, you know, of course. I used a 45% step over on this. So, you know, but the amount of work that the finishing bit's going to have to do is really, you know, very, very minimal. So even roughed in a little bit of the stars there. So for the finishing pass, I'm going to be using a brand new, let me try to get that on there, a brand new finishing bit there, the Thou X. That's a 1/16 diameter tapered ball end mill, brand spanking new. I can't wait to see how good the details are that come out of that. This is a 2-flute 1/4 inch. I think it's a 3.6 degree taper on that. So really excited. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but it'll definitely be worth it. All right, let's get it started. All right, so I've taken it off the CNC and I went over with both the nylon brush first to get rid of the little fuzzy things, and then I also hand sanded it with 150 grit, like an older 150 grit, to get out some of the slight lines that were still left from the finishing pass. So it's pretty darn smooth and looks really good. The only thing a little gripe I have is that the stars, the little points on the stars didn't quite come out in enough detail. Again, using the 1/16 diameter tapered ball nose doesn't produce, you know, a very fine line. Yes, I probably could have gone over this and did a separate tool path for the stars. Again, just after how long it took to do this, you know, this took 8 hours. Actually a little over, 8 hours. An hour and a half to rough it out, and then six and a half hours to do the finishing pass. So, you know what? That's good enough for me. And I just didn't go crazy to, you know, put more detail into the stars. So I'm at the point now where I'm ready to prime it, and I'm just going to use a brush and some primer, try to get it all in the nooks and crannies, and that's it. Okay, so it's been about 3 hours and the primer has dried. I've gone ahead and sanded it with 320 grit Scotch-Brite pad and then followed it up with sandpaper itself, 320 grit, just to make sure I got any high spots off. It's really smooth. And I've taped off this part just to delineate where the red has to stop for the field of blue. That'll be the background for the stars. So I'm gonna do the red part first on the stripes, and then I will fill in with white on the stars, and then that'll dry overnight, 24 hours, and then I have to tape off and do the reverse, do the white and then the blue. All right, so I'm all set, ready to go. And I'm gonna use a roller as the little roller as well to put the red on and see how it goes. I'm not afraid if I get it in the white part, because again, that's got to be covered, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so the first coat for the red has dried and the white in the stars. And you may have noticed in the first coat that I had difficulty not touching the white with the edge of the roller. And that's because the surface of the flag is really wavy and the roller was too big. It was just impossible to get the surface of the red without touching the white. So what I did was, I believe I've created the world's smallest roller. I might be wrong, but I just took a foam roller and cut the handle as well, and then I tapered the end of it to give it some kind of a relieved edge. So I'm going to try it out. It looks like it'll work pretty good, and not touch the white. Fingers crossed. Okay, so the second coat of red has dried, and I am now ready to apply the first coat of blue to the star areas. And I'm experimenting with a technique here. I hope it works out. I don't expect the stars to remain completely untouched, let's say. I'm going to be using that foam roller that I used on the red. However, I'm going to try to go really, really light on the blue paint so that it doesn't bleed down into the white areas. I'm gonna see how this works. If, I'm expecting some kind of bleed down, and if it does, that's fine. I made a stencil of the star so that afterward, when the blue is all done, I can just touch it up with some white paint and try to keep it as clean as possible and not have to go through each and every star with crazy detail, because that would take a really long time. So let me see how this works, and fingers crossed, hopefully it will keep it nice and clean. And I plan on doing multiple coats of the blue just because I'm going really light. We'll just, like I said, see how it goes. Okay, so I am now ready to do the final coats on the white areas. I've taped off all of the red and the blue where it contacts the white, and I'm pretty much all ready to go. On this part, I'm just going to use a brush and just get the white part. And after this, I will go back and with a little fine artist brush like this, I will touch up inside the stars with the little stencil that I made to, you know, get rid of any unwanted color where it shouldn't be. All right, so here it is, all finished. I sized it because I had extra material around the edges, so I trimmed off all the extra material. And let me tell you, the stars were a real pain. Off camera, I had to touch up each star with an artist brush because the blue got into them. But everything else worked out really good. I used the satin finish on this, so it's got a real satiny look to it, just like a real flag. And yeah, I'm really happy with how this came out. Really cool. All right, well, there it is in its new home. I don't know how permanent it is. I like to float things around in here, you know, depending on the mood. I like to change things up every now and then, but for now, it's gonna stay there. So this one was a bit of an adventure, an expensive adventure, let's say. When you have unforeseen lurking problems waiting for you, you know, what can you expect? So anyway, I learned a lot from this one, and I would have changed a couple of things, you know, if I have to do it again. Definitely the stars are a pain in the butt, and I would do something a little different there, change up the toolpath, so on and so forth. The painting is an absolute nightmare of the stars. Everything else was pretty simple, but I had to paint each individual star with an artist brush to touch it up at the end. I didn't do it on camera. Again, that took a long time, and I won't do that again. It was torture, but I will come up with some other way to do it if I do it in the future again. So I hope you guys learned something from this one. If you did, please be sure to give me a thumbs up, like, and don't forget to subscribe. Again, it keeps all of the content coming and it keeps the channel going. So with that, I will see you guys on the next one.